Put Elvis in a Western movie where he's meant to play a half Native American man, half white man, and you're instantly gonna think this is a doomed project that's gonna age like garbage. First of all, I didn't even know Elvis ever starred in a Western movie, but he was a very popular icon who starred in a number of different types of movies, all involving singing, so it makes sense that eventually he would show up in one of the most popular genres of the time. Now, given the kind of plot, you'd think that this movie has no chance of handling that kind of material in an appropriate way, right?
Flaming Star was directed by Don Siegel in 1960. This director was best known for classics such as The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Escape from Alcatraz, and Dirty Harry. That's a career that spanned many genres and decades, and with Flaming Star, he got the chance to work with Elvis Presley, who had already been making a splash in the Hollywood scene. A Western, based on the novel Flaming Lance, doesn't seem to be the most likely project to see the King of Rock in, especially since, given some of the other movies he had been in, you'd expect this to be a much more campy version of what we'd see in the likes of a John Wayne movie. The movie begins with a ballad from Elvis, which feels appropriate enough, but it leads to this really goofy sing-along number, something you'd expect from a Disney movie of the time. Everyone's hooting and hollering and having the best time. It feels off the cuff and messy, and it sets you in the mood. But to be honest, this intro might throw you off because immediately after this, one of the families is murdered by a Kiowa tribe, who have been fighting with the local white settlers. One of them escapes and goes on a long journey, crawling until they make it back to the Burton's log home. Burton is married to Nettie, and they have two sons, Clint, who isn't Nettie's biological son, and Pacer, played by Elvis, who ends up being half native, half white. So given their family unit and the connections to both sides of the battle, it's obvious that this will lead to some difficult confrontations. And you know what? Instead of rushing this stuff or oversimplifying the matter or even attempting some kind of political stance, this movie instead lays everything out in a complicated, believable way. The Burtons want nothing to do with the battle, but neither side will let them stay neutral. As things move along, the situation becomes more and more tense, and with a few deaths here and there, it turns into quite a powerful story about the difficulties of race relations, and we see some characters have really believable changes as the events impact them. For a movie made in 1960, you'd expect a bigger patriotic ending, and to either simplify the plight of the natives or to portray them in an uneducated manner. Obviously, I'm not the first person to go to when discussing Native American history, but I have an understanding of what's acceptable and what's offensive, and previous portrayals in cinema have been condemned, but honestly, I don't see a lot of the usual suspects here. Of course, there are still some issues. For instance, the roles of Nettie and Buffalo Horn, the most prominent natives in the movie, are portrayed by Mexican actors. But in a way, I guess, that's still giving work to minorities rather than doing the embarrassingly bad and offensive dark makeup on white actors. We also don't spend too much time with the natives, only really ever seeing them kill the white men, and the only person who ever speaks for them is Buffalo Horn. However, Elvis himself apparently had Native American descendants on his father's side. I don't exactly know how much you need to be before it's appropriate to take on a role like this, but the fact that he had any percentage of ancestry is kind of amazing. But of course, he still looks very much white. It just gets difficult though. I'm sure it'd been better if the chance was offered to someone who had more Native American lineage, but those kinds of offers just weren't offered back in the day to actors like that. It's a troublesome topic to this day. It really just works for the story, which has been done many times before, but if you can offer new things or interesting points of view, then it's worth retelling, and the movie sells you on that idea. It's a brisk pace, only being 92 minutes, and looking as glamorous as any Western would in that time. But you also get some grit. Plus, Elvis really does give a fantastic performance. After really being let down in his last movie I saw of his, Double Trouble, this was a surprising turnaround. He really has the chops to be a dramatic performer, and he even has some pretty chilling, serious moments. Instead of laughing because he's the guy who sang Hound Dog, I'm instead invested in his character. and they pack in a few surprises here and there, so don't expect just a retread of stuff you've seen before. In fact, the ending is kind of a downer, a complete contrast to the film's opening. The only disappointing part is the climax, because we don't really get one. After Elvis saves his brother, he decides he's going to choose his family and go against the tribe, which leads to a final battle, I guess. Elvis comes back in a later scene beat and bruised, but we never see the actual fight go down. What kind of western is this? We don't get to see all the arrows flying and Elvis taking down people. He beats up 2 travelers earlier in the movie, and that was great. We needed more of that, but instead, I guess they cut it all out for, well, I'm guessing budget issues. It couldn't have been for time constraints because the movie was already pretty short to begin with. If you have an hour and a half and you need to see a solid western with one of the most popular icons of all time that isn't a cheese fest, then give Flaming Star a try. Given the material, I was shocked by just how good it was. Definitely worth a future rewatch. Thanks to Movie Johnson for this Patreon request, and thanks to all my Patreon supporters. For only $7, you can get your own monthly movie review. Ask me to review anything I haven't already. There's also other perks like blogs, exclusive videos, and early access. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thanks so much for watching this video.